The war of Kurukshetra had raged for 16 days, reaching its most intense phase. Countless warriors had fallen, and the battlefield had turned into a land of blood and dust. Each sunrise brought new battles, and each sunset left behind stories of courage, loss, and sacrifice. On the 17th day, the Pandavas and Kauravas were locked in a fierce struggle, their warriors falling one by one. Amidst this destruction, an unexpected conflict arose, not between enemies, but between brothers. Arjuna, the legendary archer, had not just raised his weapon against Kaurav warriors. Today, he raised it against his own elder brother, Yudhishthira, the very symbol of Dharma. What could Yudhishthira have said to ignite such fury in the heart of a warrior known for his composure? This is not just a tale of battle, it is a raw, emotional journey of pride, honor, and redemption. A moment that nearly fractured the Pandav brotherhood but, in the end, revealed profound lessons that would shape their destiny. With Dronacharya's fall, the Kauravas, now under Karna's command, became an even more formidable force. Karna, who had sworn to kill Arjuna, fought with divine weapons and an unshaken grudge, cutting through the Pandav ranks like a storm. That morning, he clashed with Yudhishthira, the eldest Pandav. Though Yudhishthira was a mighty warrior and fought bravely, the duel grew increasingly intense. He managed to injure Karna with well-aimed arrows, demonstrating remarkable skill and resilience. However, Karna, armed with celestial weapons and driven by fierce determination, retaliated with overwhelming force. His arrows tore through Yudhishthira's defenses, killing his guards, shattering his chariot, and breaking his bow. His armor lay in ruins, and his body was riddled with arrows. Despite his unwavering spirit, the relentless assault left him severely wounded. Unable to continue fighting, his attendants had to carry him off the battlefield. Yudhishthira endured not just physical agony but also the sting of Karna's taunts, words that cut deeper than any arrow. Humiliated and unable to continue, he was taken back to his tent. Far from this scene, Arjuna was engaged in a fierce battle elsewhere. It was Shri Krishna who first informed him that Karna had grievously injured Yudhishthira and urged him to check on his brother. Deeply concerned, Arjuna turned to Bhima, inquiring about Yudhishthira's whereabouts. Bhima confirmed the grim news: Yudhishthira had left the battlefield, severely wounded by Karna's arrows. Though in immense pain, he was still alive, barely holding on. Realizing the urgency, Arjuna insisted that someone should immediately check on Yudhishthira. However, Bhima hesitated, knowing that if he left the battlefield, enemy soldiers would mock him for fleeing. Instead, he urged Arjuna to go himself. Arjuna, however, was resolute. He could not leave without first dealing with the enemies standing before him. Seeing his determination, Bhima stepped forward, promising to take on the battle in his stead. With Shri Krishna at the reins, Arjuna sped toward Yudhishthira's camp. Upon reaching Yudhishthira's tent, Shri Krishna and Arjuna felt immense relief seeing him alive. Yudhishthira, too, was momentarily elated to see them unharmed. He assumed they had already vanquished Karna, believing his shame had been erased. He recounted his ordeal, how Karna had destroyed his chariot, slaughtered his protectors, and mocked his kingship. But all that pain seemed to vanish as he praised Arjuna and Shri Krishna, expecting them to confirm Karna's death. However, Arjuna's response shattered his illusion. Karna was still alive. Arjuna explained that he had been locked in battle elsewhere and had rushed to Yudhishthira's side upon hearing of his injury. He had not yet confronted Karna but was now seeking his elder brother's permission and blessings before returning to the battlefield. Yudhishthira's relief curdled into anger. His pain and frustration clouded his judgment. Misinterpreting Arjuna's concern as hesitation, he lashed out with a barrage of words so harsh and deeply personal that they pushed Arjuna to the brink. Yudhishthira's voice rose with bitter disappointment, his words cutting through the air like sharp arrows. He accused Arjuna of cowardice, claiming that he had abandoned the battlefield, allowing the Pandava army to scatter while he fled to the camp instead of facing Karna. The frustration and pain in his heart clouded his judgment, and in his anger, he even questioned Arjuna's very birth, suggesting that he had brought no honor to their mother, Kunti. Recalling the divine prophecy at Arjuna's birth, Yudhishthira mocked the celestial voice that had once declared him as mighty as Indra, an invincible warrior destined to conquer all enemies. Now, disillusioned, he dismissed those words as false, saying that even the heavens must have deceived them, for Arjuna had cowered before a mere charioteer's son. Sages and ascetics had praised Arjuna as an unparalleled warrior, the greatest archer the world had ever seen. Until that day, Yudhishthira had never doubted his brother's strength, nor had he ever feared Duryodhana's rise. But seeing Arjuna return without slaying Karna made him question everything. His humiliation at Karna's hands weighed heavily on him, filling him with shame. He lamented how he had fallen before Karna, not just in battle but in front of both allies and enemies alike. The disgrace was unbearable, and in that moment of anguish, he regretted even surviving. But his anger did not stop there. Yudhishthira went on to say that if Abhimanyu or Ghatotkacha were still alive, they would have crushed Karna, sparing him this dishonor. His frustration only grew as he looked upon Gandhiv, the mighty bow blessed by the gods, and at Shri Krishna, the divine charioteer. With both in his possession, how could Arjuna have turned away from Karna? How could he, armed with such divine power, flee in fear? Then came the final and most devastating blow. Yudhishthira demanded that Arjuna surrender Gandhiv, the very bow that defined his identity. He declared that Arjuna should hand it over to someone braver, someone truly worthy of wielding it. In that moment, he did not just insult Arjuna, he shamed the legacy of Gandhiv, the divine chariot, and even Shri Krishna's presence alongside him, questioning their ability to bring victory. These were more than mere insults, they were an assault on Arjuna's very soul, tearing away everything he held sacred. Arjuna's fury exploded the moment Yudhishthira spoke those words. He seized his sword, ready to commit the unthinkable, killing his own elder brother. Shri Krishna, sensing Arjuna's deadly intent, intervened immediately. He questioned Arjuna's sudden aggression, reminding him that there was no enemy before him. Why had he drawn his weapon against his own kin? Faced with Shri Krishna's inquiry, Arjuna revealed the reason for his fury. He had once taken a secret vow that he would slay anyone who asked him to surrender his Gandhiv bow. Now, Yudhishthira had done just that, and Arjuna felt bound by his oath. Yet, even in his rage, he sought Shri Krishna's wisdom, trusting him to guide his actions. Hearing Arjuna's intent, Shri Krishna was both disappointed and exasperated. He condemned Arjuna's recklessness, calling it a sign of ignorance. If Arjuna had truly learned from the wise, he would have known better than to let anger cloud his judgment at such a critical moment. Shri Krishna pointed out that Arjuna's behavior did not reflect strength, but rather confusion about the very nature of Dharma. Those who truly understood righteousness would never act in the manner he was about to. Shri Krishna explained that a person blinded by misplaced ideals becomes incapable of distinguishing right from wrong. True wisdom does not lie in rigid adherence to an oath but in understanding the greater good. The scriptures, which Arjuna prided himself on following, were meant to guide one toward justice, not to bind them into committing foolish acts. The highest virtue was protecting life, and if a lie could save a life, then even that was justified. Arjuna, a warrior of great renown, was now prepared to commit fratricide, and act utterly against the principles of righteousness, simply because of an ill-considered vow. Shri Krishna reminded him that a noble man does not consider it righteous to kill someone who is unarmed, bears no enmity, is fleeing the battlefield, seeks refuge, surrenders with folded hands, or is unguarded. At that moment, Yudhishthira, their elder brother and rightful king, embodied all these qualities. Striking him down would not be an act of honor, but one of shame. Arjuna had made a promise long ago, but following it now without wisdom would only lead him down a path of sin. Dharma, Shri Krishna continued, is not as simple as blindly following one's word. Speaking the truth is a noble deed. There is nothing greater than truth, but sometimes even a truthful person may struggle to discern its true nature. There are moments when truth leads to harm, while a lie can bring about good. If someone's life is in danger or everything they have is being taken away, it becomes a duty to protect them, even if it requires deception. There is no sin in lying under such circumstances. One must first carefully distinguish between truth and falsehood, choosing the path that ultimately upholds righteousness. Truth spoken blindly, without consideration of its consequences, is not true dharma. Those who rigidly adhere to truth without wisdom may be seen as fools rather than virtuous men. To illustrate his point, Shri Krishna recounted 2 examples. A hunter named Balak once committed a seemingly cruel act, yet because he acted with true understanding, he attained great virtue. In contrast, the sage Kaushik, despite his unwavering devotion to righteousness, unknowingly caused harm due to his ignorance of when to apply wisdom over rigid truthfulness. Even the most well-intentioned individuals can fall into sin when they fail to grasp the deeper essence of dharma. Regarding truth and deception, Shri Krishna clarified that lying is not always sinful. In situations where life is at risk or during critical moments, telling a lie may be necessary and is not considered a sin. He also warned against surrendering wealth to sinners, as it brings harm to the giver. Finally, Shri Krishna urged Arjuna to reconsider his anger toward Yudhishthira. He asked him to reflect on whether he still believed his elder brother deserved to be killed after gaining a true understanding of dharma. Arjuna confessed that his vow was to kill anyone who asked him to give up his Gandhiv bow. Now, he found himself trapped. If he killed Yudhishthira, he could not live without him. If he spared him, he would break his vow. Seeking guidance, he pleaded with Shri Krishna for a solution that would uphold both dharma and his vow while ensuring Yudhishthira's life. Shri Krishna explained that Yudhishthira had spoken in anger and pain, not out of malice. Karna had grievously wounded him in battle with sharp arrows, even attacking him when he was unarmed. Filled with grief and humiliation, Yudhishthira had uttered words that should not have been spoken. However, he knew that only Arjuna could defeat Karna and that Karna's death was necessary for the Kauravas' downfall. Since Yudhishthira's words were spoken in a moment of distress, killing him would be unjust. Yet, Arjuna's vow still had to be fulfilled. Shri Krishna then revealed a way for Arjuna to uphold his promise without committing fratricide. Shri Krishna advised that in the world's eyes, deep insult is equivalent to death. By deeply insulting Yudhishthira, speaking to him disrespectfully and addressing him with contempt, Arjuna could symbolically fulfill his vow. Shri Krishna explained that by using tu instead of the respectful aap, Yudhishthira would perceive it as the equivalent of his own death. In society, losing honor is akin to dying, and thus, humiliating Yudhishthira would serve as a symbolic fulfillment of Arjuna's oath without physically harming him. Shri Krishna assured Arjuna that Yudhishthira, in his wisdom, would understand the true intent behind his words and would not react with anger, as he embraced the deeper essence of dharma. Shri Krishna also advised Arjuna to apologize afterward for the inappropriate act, ensuring that both his vow and dharma remained intact. Following Shri Krishna's advice, Arjuna harshly rebuked Yudhishthira, speaking in a manner he had never used before. He accused his elder brother of cowardice, mocking him for abandoning the battlefield and questioning his right to rebuke others. In contrast, he praised Bhim's bravery, acknowledging his relentless combat against formidable warriors and his ruthless destruction of the enemy. Overwhelmed with frustration, Arjuna warned Yudhishthira not to provoke him further, fearing that his anger might spiral out of control. However, as soon as the harsh words left his mouth, Arjuna was consumed by deep remorse. As a man of Dharma, he realized the enormity of his transgression, insulting his elder brother and king. Overwhelmed with guilt, he felt there was no redemption for his actions except by ending his own life. Determined to do so, he picked up his sword again, but before he could act, Shri Krishna intervened. Understanding Arjuna's state of mind, Shri Krishna questioned his impulsive decision and assured him that there were other ways to resolve the situation, promising to guide him. In response, Arjuna confessed that, driven by stubbornness, he had committed a great sin by insulting his brother. Overcome with guilt and despair, he declared his intention to destroy his own body. Shri Krishna reminded him that killing one's own brother would lead to terrible consequences in the afterlife, and suicide was an even greater sin. He explained that Dharma is subtle and not always straightforward. True adherence to it requires wisdom, not blind obedience to rigid rules. Instead of punishing himself, Arjuna was advised to counteract his insult in a symbolic way. By proclaiming his own greatness, it would be as if he had humbled himself before Yudhishthira, metaphorically destroying himself in his brother's eyes. Realizing the wisdom in Shri Krishna's words, Arjuna complied. He spoke of his unparalleled skill as a warrior, emphasizing his victories across all directions and his unmatched prowess with the bow. He declared that apart from Mahadev, who wields the Pinak, there was no greater archer than himself. No warrior in battle could defeat him. Arjuna wished that Yudhishthira would find joy today, for he vowed that he would not rest until he had slain Karna with his arrows. Immediately after, Arjuna placed his weapons aside and, filled with shame, bowed at Yudhishthira's feet. Fully submitting himself before his elder brother, he sought forgiveness with great humility, acknowledging his mistake and reaffirming his unwavering devotion. He assured Yudhishthira that his sole purpose now was to eliminate Karna and secure Bhim's victory in battle. Yudhishthira, however, was deeply shaken by the confrontation. The weight of Arjuna's words filled him with sorrow, making him question his own worth. He began to believe that his misfortunes were due to his own shortcomings and blamed himself for his brother's suffering. Feeling unworthy of kingship, he resolved to renounce everything and retreat into the forest, convinced that Bhim was far more deserving of the throne. He no longer saw a reason to remain in the world after enduring such humiliation. With this thought in mind, Yudhishthira abruptly rose from his bed, prepared to leave the battlefield and his brothers behind, burdened by the belief that he had failed them all. Seeing Yudhishthira's distress and his decision to abandon everything, Shri Krishna intervened. With humility and wisdom, he acknowledged the situation and took responsibility for what had transpired. He reminded Yudhishthira that Arjuna's vow was well known. Anyone who asked him to give up his Gandiv bow was to be slain. Yet, Yudhishthira had unknowingly put himself in that very position by making such a statement. To uphold both his vow and Dharma, Arjuna had been compelled to insult his elder brother. However, Shri Krishna explained that this was done not out of disrespect but as a necessary act to prevent a far graver sin. According to Dharma, deeply insulting an elder was equivalent to killing them in spirit, and thus, Arjuna had symbolically fulfilled his oath without actually harming Yudhishthira. Shri Krishna then pleaded for forgiveness on behalf of both himself and Arjuna, assuring Yudhishthira that their actions, though painful, were taken with the highest regard for truth and righteousness. Shri Krishna also reassured Yudhishthira that the real enemy, Karna, would soon meet his end and that the great injustice done by him would be avenged. Hearing Shri Krishna's words, Yudhishthira's sorrow began to fade. He suddenly realized the mistake he had made in letting his frustration overcome his wisdom. With a newfound sense of clarity, he accepted that Shri Krishna had guided him away from disaster. Filled with gratitude, he acknowledged Shri Krishna's divine role in protecting them all from calamity. Recognizing that he and Arjun had been caught in the storm of emotions and ignorance, Yudhishthira saw Shri Krishna's intervention as a beacon of wisdom that had saved them from drowning in despair. With deep reverence, he accepted that only under Shri Krishna's guidance had they been able to navigate through their hardships. The weight of his sorrow lifted, and he was once again ready to face the battle ahead, knowing that with Shri Krishna's support, victory and justice would prevail. Shri Krishna reminded Arjun that understanding Dharma is not simple, and for those who lack deep wisdom, it becomes even more challenging. If Arjun had slain his elder brother in a moment of blind adherence to his vow, he would have condemned himself to unimaginable darkness and suffering. Instead, Shri Krishna urged him to seek Yudhishthira's forgiveness, for only after reconciling with him could they turn their attention to their true purpose, defeating Karna. Realizing his mistake, Arjun, filled with remorse, fell at Yudhishthira's feet, deeply ashamed of his actions. He humbly sought forgiveness, acknowledging that his anger and rigid sense of duty had led him astray. Witnessing his younger brother's sorrow, Yudhishthira was moved. He lifted Arjun with great affection and embraced him, unable to hold back his own tears. Overcome with emotion, both brothers wept for a long time, releasing the burdens of anger and grief that had built between them. Their hearts were purified through this moment of shared sorrow, and their love for each other was reaffirmed. Arjun, now resolute, vowed that he would either slay Karna or perish on the battlefield. Shri Krishna urged Yudhishthira to pacify Arjun and bless him for victory. With misunderstandings resolved and tempers calmed, the brothers, along with Shri Krishna, refocused on their ultimate goal, defeating Karna and securing victory in the war. The confrontation between Arjun and Yudhishthira, fueled by anger, wounded pride, and misinterpreted emotions, serves as a powerful lesson on dharma, restraint, and wisdom. Shri Krishna's intervention highlights that dharma is not rigid but requires understanding, discernment, and the ability to see beyond immediate emotions. Arjun's willingness to seek wisdom over impulse, and Yudhishthira's ability to acknowledge his own mistakes, showcase the strength of self-reflection and humility. Their reconciliation reinforces the idea that true strength lies not just in wielding weapons but in mastering one's emotions and upholding righteousness. This episode from the Mahabharata reminds us that even in moments of great conflict, whether in war or life, wisdom, patience, and the ability to recognize one's errors can transform potential disaster into a path of growth, unity, and ultimate victory. True wisdom lies in restraint. Pause before you act, think before you speak. Real strength is knowing when to rise above. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel, Vibes of Divinity. Until then, stay inspired.